Hey, what's going on? It's PM Vlogs. So, I kind of got out of recording vlogs while I'm riding my bike. And not to say that I don't enjoy recording vlogs while I'm riding my bike, but sometimes it can be a little bit of a challenge, especially because you're while you're riding and you're passing other people, people on foot, on other bikes, people taking a break on the side of the trail, different things like that. It can be a little awkward to sit there and be recording, even though, to I would say, anybody that hears someone talking while they're riding a bike or jogging or walking or whatever, regardless of what they're actually doing, they're going to assume that you're just talking on the phone, especially nowadays with every single pair of earbuds, wireless wired, bone conduction headphones. Everything that they make now has some kind of microphone in it and allows you to talk on the phone. And gone are the days of people that I've seen, strapping a MP3 player to their arm somewhere, or having it hanging on some kind of like neck lanyard, or an AM FM radio. Growing up, that was like the popular thing, was having an armband type AM FM radio, or the little cassette player that you could clip onto the waistband of your shorts or pants or whatever you're wearing. Not limited to shorts or pants, but that was how things were back in the day. Now everybody just carries their phone with them for the most part, and either is streaming some kind of music, talking on the phone, listening to a podcast, an audiobook, whatever. So if you're talking, it's not like people are going to say, hey, this person's, recording some kind of video for YouTube. The only thing that does kind of stand out is on the handlebar of my bike, I have my little DJI Action 2 mounted on a little mount that attaches it to the stem. Now, anybody who sees that is probably just going to think that, and usually I ride in the later part of the day, so the sun's already going down, and on my handlebar, really under my handlebar, about 6 inches from where the camera is my bike's headlight. So chances are you're probably not even going to be able to see the camera, because to look at the camera, you have to be basically staring at my headlight, even though it is properly angled, pointed down. So it's not, I've seen a lot of cyclists where they have the headlight pointed straight out, which, yeah, it gives you it throws that light really far down the path, but it's also very blinding to oncoming pedestrians or oncoming cyclists. So I try to keep mine to where it's throwing light to a far enough distance that I can see any kind of hazards on the path. That way I can not have to make a last second corrective maneuver. Good example, a couple days ago when I was riding, there was a small snake that was crossing the path, and it's a paved path, so hazards do stand out like that. And it was also on the opposite side of the path, but still it was slithering its way across my side of the path. But I was able to make sure, see it ahead of time versus seeing it at the last second, and maybe I would have been taking that turn a little bit wide, or maybe I would have, been drifting onto that side of the path for one reason or another. So going back to the whole camera thing, and people may just think, okay, whatever, it's a camera, they don't care. You're not even, and by the time you'd recognize it, if I'm doing 13 to 17 miles an hour, I do have to limit my speed a little bit when I am recording, just to help with wind noise. Even though the little lapel mic I wear does have the little wind piece on it, you do still have to be considering that you can't, if you're doing 25 miles an hour, for one, you can be breathing so heavily that speaking is just not going to be a very practical thing to do. However, it is a cycling vlog thing, so if I decide to have a little, hey, I'm going to pedal really fast, I can either edit that section out or do something else with that little clip of video. Going back to another thing, I recently did a few little upgrades on the bike, and that's why I wanted to do this video, mainly because I wanted to put something out, but I'm going to be off the bike for a few days, taking care of some other stuff, so figured why not record something and push something out there. One of the things I did is when I bought the bike, it had regular through axles where you needed, I believe it was an 8mm hex key or Allen wrench, whatever you want to call it, to install or remove the through axle, both the front or the rear. The way I transport my bike, I need to frequently take that front wheel off, so I went to the bike shop and ordered a DT Swiss through axle that has the little lever on the side of it. If you're familiar with them, then you'll know what I'm talking about. Ordered the one for the front wheel, put it on there. It is so much better than having to, when I need to install it or remove it, having to grab my little wrench, put it in there, remove it, put the wrench in the through axle in a safe place. When I need to when I'm going to ride the bike again, or I need to put the front wheel back on, having to do the same thing, get the through axle, put the through axle on, put the wrench in the through axle, tighten the through axle, put the wrench away, and go about my ride. I noticed that due to my transportation method for the bike, that I was getting, every now and then, if I wasn't careful, I would get some slight scuffs on the rear of the chainstay, pretty much where the rear through axle is. It is cosmetic. It's an aluminum frame. You know, I can touch it up with a little touch-up paint or something, or maybe just get a little bottle of like touch-up clear or something like that, just that way it won't look weird with the you know, that there's a mismatch of paint colors. Just throw some clear over top of it. But I ordered another DT Swiss through axle for the rear wheel because I was realizing if I had that through axle, it would basically keep that portion of the frame about 3/4 of an inch away from being able to contact anything, or at least that's my theory. So ordered that, ended up ordering the wrong one on Amazon, and I'll take fault for it, but the listing should be a little more clear. And when I did my return, I did mention that through axles have a specific thread pitch, so hopefully the seller will realize, I'm sure they know, but they will be sure that that's clearly put in the listing, because my bike's a 1.0 thread pitch. The one I ordered was a 1.5, and unfortunately the SRAM UDH, the Universal Derailleur Hanger, which if you go read reviews on that, they're comical, because I believe some people have ordered it, or quite a few people have ordered it expecting that it's a universal one-size-fits-all derailleur hanger. Doesn't matter what type of bike you have, it will work. That is not the case. The Universal Derailleur Hanger was SRAM saying, here, we have made a derailleur hanger. We're not going to charge for the use of it. Here's basically all the specifications for you to build a frame compatible with this derailleur hanger, which is great. But it was a little bit self-serving to SRAM, because with their new drivetrain options, it doesn't use a derailleur hanger anymore. It doesn't use a removable derailleur hanger. It basically directly bolts to the frame, but it bolts to the frame on bikes that are compatible with the UDH, the Universal Derailleur Hanger. So it definitely was a way to get compatibility in the market for their new drivetrain systems, which, hey, got handed to them. That's a pretty smart idea. But I ordered that through Axle, and the point I was making with the UDH is that there isn't, at least to my knowledge, options for thread pitch for the through axle. I think it's just a 1.0 through axle, no matter what, because my front wheel is a 1.5. So I'm assuming that if there was the option, they probably would have went with 1.5 both front and rear, just so that way they're the same. But because and then why not just make the front? But I'm assuming it's probably comes down to part availability and part just it's cheaper for them to have 10 bikes that use the same style through axle, because then they just have to have that one in inventory. If you have 5 bikes that use one, 5 bikes that use another, this group of 5 sells way more than this group of 5, then you start getting into, well, we can't buy as many through axles in this size, so we don't get as good of a price as compared to these. So you get into all of that. Whereas if you can just make the same thing, you could stock one style of the part, then it makes things easier on inventory management, and it allows you to, when you order the parts, to order them in way larger quantities, getting you a way lower price. But that's getting out of the whole cycling thing. And then last week I was having some issues with my cadence RPM sensor, basically, for my that's mounted on my crank arm. I was having problems with it connecting, so I went ahead and took that off and took off the speed sensor, replaced the batteries in both of them, so hopefully they'll both pair without problems, because I was having issues with the speed sensor a while back where it kept saying low battery. So hopefully going forward I will not have compatibility issues. Like I said, I just kind of went and while I'm not on the bike for a few days, figured why not knock out a couple of little to-do things. One thing that I did, and it's a 22-23 Salsa Journeyer Apex 1. It's the bike that's in the little photo graphic for this video, and will likely be the same photo for subsequent videos until I take a new photo and make one for this video, or for these videos. But other than the main upgrades that you see on the bike, bags, lights, rear light, radar, that kind of stuff, the one mechanical upgrade that I did to the bike was going from a 40 tooth chainring to a 42 tooth. The riding that I do, and I understand the 40 tooth that it came with, because it's a gravel bike, and if you have a bunch of packs mounted on the bike and you're carrying gear for a bike packing trip, which the bike is designed for that. It has all of the mounts, the pack mounts, fender mounts, all the stuff. If you're carrying all that weight and you're in gravel biking terrain where you're carrying a load up a incline, you're going to need lower gearing to get that load up there. So I understand the 40 tooth. Problem is, the way I'm riding, I'm on a lot of flat ground. The bike didn't have enough top end. The little bit of grade that I have to climb on my ride, if I was in the lowest gear, I was spinning going up the incline, because it had so much on the low end that I just didn't need. And the bike, unless I go to a 2x, is limited to a 42 tooth. Otherwise, I actually probably would have gone a little bit bigger, because I think I had either a 46 or a 48 tooth on my last bike. So, but I upgraded as much as I could, and it definitely gave me more on the top end, took away some of that unnecessarily low end, was able to, I mean, obviously it was just one jump up, so chain that was on there when I got the bike fit perfectly from the 40 to the 42 tooth. I've had no issues. The only issue I have had drivetrain related, and this is likely just due to anything, cable stretch, whatever. I've got about 650 miles on the bike, which is really good for, in my opinion, for the amount of time I've had available for cycling between work, personal life stuff, weather, you name it. For the last, I think, 3 months, 600 miles. I mean, that's 200 miles a month. I feel is pretty good. I mean, obviously, there's plenty of people out there that are doing way more miles, but in my opinion, I'm doing pretty good. I did have to adjust the derailleur cable the other day. Not a whole lot, just like not even I think a turn. But I did have to adjust it because it was when I would hit the shift lever. Excuse me. When I hit the shift lever, there would be a little bit of a delay in the shift, and it wasn't like a delay like it would. The chain needed the gear needed to turn enough to get to the point where it can jump the chain off of it or move the chain off, or whatever. It was more like the derailleur wasn't moving far enough over, so it wasn't quite getting it to that point to pull the chain off of the gear or to push it off of the gear to a lower gear. So made a few adjustments made an adjustment before I started riding, and then that didn't 100% take care of it. So then as I was riding, I would kind of ride a couple hundred yards, stop, make a little bit adjustment on the barrel adjuster, ride another couple hundred yards, make another adjustment. And I did that, and then you could kind of tell it was getting better and getting better and getting better. And then I finally got it to the point where it's like, okay, this is shifting as it should. I'm hitting the button, and it's pretty much immediately into the correct gear, into the gear, that I moved it to. So did that, checked the whole range from the lowest gear to the highest, all 11 gears, all of them shift perfect. One thing I did learn about the Apex One shifter, because on my previous bike I had done a 1x11 gear swap on it, and that bike was originally, I think, a 3x7. No, yes, yeah, 3x7, 21 speed. Although, like a friend of mine pointed out, because you can't cross chain, you really don't have 21 speeds, because you can't be in all of your front chain rings and use all of the rear gears. So while it's a 21 speed, if you 3x7, you're really not a 21 speed, but we're not going to go down that. On that particular bike, on my shift lever, when you would tap the shift lever to shift up a gear, you could shift one at a time. To shift down, you could press the button and shift down multiple gears at a time. And when I picked up the gravel bike, I had asked the gentleman that was finalizing the sale and everything, I had asked him about that. And I said, hey, on this bike, when I shift, is it just one shift up, one shift down, or if I press the lever further, can I shift down multiple gears? And he said, no, it's just a one up, one down. So I said, okay, no big deal. I'm like, I wish it would do more, shifting down, because where the inclines are, I like to, right before I'm about to get up there, just, scoot down a bunch of gears and then, go up the incline. So for the first couple rides, I'm sitting there, I'm like clicking the little I guess it's a brifter, brake shifter. I'm hitting that lever, just one click at a time. And then one day when I was riding, I was doing something and I like pressed it more, because it's basically you press it, it makes a click, and that would be up a gear. If you press it, it makes 2 clicks, that takes you down a gear. If you press it, it makes 3 clicks, or maybe it's 3 clicks, and maybe I think it either does 3 or 4 clicks. I know it does 3, but I don't remember if it does a 4th. And I really don't feel like going try right now without actually being on the bike. But it'll shift down multiple gears, which is great, because there's been plenty of times where you need to go down more than one gear. Big thing I did on that bike, and I am so happy I did it from the get-go, was getting a dropper post put on it. Could have taken the dropper post off of the last bike and put it onto this bike. It's the same seat post diameter, but this bike is plumbed for the internal routing of a dropper post, so why not run it that way? One thing I did look at, and part of me really wants to get them, but part of me is also the P&W pedals that I have on there are just fine. They have no issues. They're not broken, damaged, wearing out, or anything. They're other than light wear on them, they're just like the day I bought them, probably a year or two ago now. Year, somewhere in between there, a year to 2 years. I was looking at the Redshift Arc Glow, I think is the name, where they basically have lights that are built into the pedals, and they're held in there with magnets, so you pop them out to recharge them via USB. And I was looking at those, and I was like, they're really cool, but I think the P&W pedals I have are like $90, and these pedals are $140. Which isn't terrible, for a good set of pedals. Like I said, the Redshift stuff is really good. I'm curious to look up. Yeah, the ones I have are $100. The P&Ws that I have, and they're I want to say they're a flat pedal. The P&W Loam flat pedals. And if you're curious, I have I think I have the Nickelback color. Although when I'm clicking on this, there we go. Yeah, it's the Nickelback that I have. They offer them in black, orange, I don't know what they call it. I think Fruit Snacks, which is like a purple color. On my bike that I had at the time, I was kind of going with a silver, black, red theme. This current bike is a reddish orange. Probably would have went with the black pedals on this bike, but there's a little bit of silver on the bike, so I've kind of been accenting when I get stuff. You kind of adding in little bits of silver here and there. Like I said though, if these P&W pedals weren't performing exceptionally well, if they didn't have a nice large platform which fits my foot size perfectly, then I would consider upgrading to those Redshift pedals. But because what I have is working just fine, I'm not going to upgrade. Do the Redshift pedals look cool as can be? Yes, but the ones I have are in perfect condition, and they're also rebuildable. So if need be, when bearings start to wear out, it's not going to cost me another $100 to buy a new set of pedals. I can just order a rebuild or refresh kit, whatever they call it, or even if I had to send them in for a rebuild, put new pins on the pedals, put new bearings in it. It would make no sense. Even though the extra lighting would be nice, my headlight and taillight are throwing enough lighting. And now, I will say, if I was like doing like commuting or something where I'm in traffic a lot, then it might be worth having that extra lighting. That might sway me to upgrade to that. But as of right now, I see absolutely no reason to upgrade to them. Trying to think of other things with the bike. The tires that are on there, those can't think of what they are now. I can't even think of what brand tires they are now. I'd have to go look at them. I know what tires, like, it's one of those, like, I was talking about them the other day, but it's the tires that they come with. But tires are just fine. The only one thing I noticed, and I'm thinking it may have actually it might be user error that was causing this, but I was noticing, like, every like 2 or 3 weeks, I run my tires at about 60 psi, a little bit over 60 psi front and rear. Is they were having, like, it seemed like they were leaking down. Like every 2 to 3 weeks, they'd be down to like 20, 25 psi front and rear. Now, obviously, I am losing a little bit of pressure with those Presta valves. When you're trying to put the chuck on there, and you end up hitting that little, like, center little piece that you have to unscrew. But part of me was thinking that I wasn't getting it seated just enough. Like, I wasn't tightening that center piece down enough. And it may have been causing a very, very slow leak that was just causing it to leak down that little bit over the course of those few weeks. One thing I will say about this bike is it's a lot of fun to ride. I've noticed, like, my riding speed, it has increased. Not a whole lot, but basically I ride for an hour and a half when I ride, and my typical route turnaround point, I was getting there after about 45 minutes of riding, plus or minus a minute or two. Now I'm going about another 2 miles or so down the path, or maybe not that far. It's definitely not that far. It might be a half a mile, maybe a half mile or 3/4 of a mile. I'd have to actually look, but I'm going further down the route before I'm hitting those 45 minutes. So it's definitely, there's an improvement. I think it's at least another mile per hour or two average faster than on the previous bike. And part of me will attribute that to just improved physical fitness, the fact that the bike is lighter, probably, maybe I wouldn't say the gearing, definitely lower rolling resistance. Even though on the previous bike, the tires that I had on there were a low rolling resistance tire, that is really bugging me. That I really hope that this that me typing on the keyboard and trying to look up the bike, because I really want to mention some stuff about that those tires. And what's funny is I'm probably going to look it up and be like, oh yeah, those are the tires. Yeah, the Terravel Washburn 700C by 38. My previous bike was a 29 by 2-inch tire, and now I can't think of what brand they were on that particular bike, and I'm not looking that up. But it was basically a urban commuting tire. It was supposed to be really resistant to punctures and stuff like that. Thankfully, I never had to test that. So, but I will say this: those tires worked very well and were much better than a mountain bike specific tire. There were some times, though, that they had they had their issues because they were mainly a pavement tire. They had some. It was basically like I explained to people. If you were to look at a mountain bike tire and take like the negative of it, so like where the lugs are, basically make those like recessed instead of protruding from the wheel, and the area that's like on a mountain bike tire that's not the lugs and all that stuff, make that the tread portion, if that makes any sense. But it was, or if you think about it like this, like think about like when you make like you roll your tire through some not like soupy mud, but mud where like you leave like your tread patterning into it. Think about if you were to take what you're looking at and wrap that around a wheel, and that tread pattern that you left in the mud is what your tread is, if that makes any sense. I hope it does. And they were much better than mountain bike tires, but I will hand it to these Terravel tires. The Terravel tires do so much better. Like I can be at 15, 17 miles an hour. I haven't tried it anything like ridiculously fast. Like the other day I was doing like 25 and a half miles an hour. Would never do it at that speed. But at say like 13 to 17 miles an hour, I can go from the pavement, run through the grass if I had to, and then right back onto the pavement. And the bike is I still feel like I am in total complete control of the bike, which is a wonderful feeling. Now I do have some new brake pads to put on the bike. I'm going to upgrade to ceramic pads. I'm pretty certain the bike has organic pads on there. I can't find any information. They may be ceramic pads already, but either way. Now the one complaint I do have is because they went with, I believe, a post mount, and I'm trying to look up like specs because I'm just flat mount brakes. There's flat mount brakes, which, while there is a lot of stuff for that, the front fork is I believe, 160 millimeter rotor, but it can fit a 180 millimeter rotor. And there's one company I've found, and the spacer ends up becoming like $70 or something like that. And to me, upgrading the front rotor for that cost, for just that spacer, it doesn't seem worth it to me. So maybe in time, as the whole gravel market grows, that other companies will start making that adapter, and it won't become just a one-off kind of part. So in time, I will likely upgrade the front rotor. It'll probably be when it's time to upgrade the rotor anyway. Hopefully that adapter will be lower cost, or by that point, I'll just be like, hey, I didn't just buy a brand new bike and am upgrading stuff just for the sake of upgrading because I want to. But hey, I'm due for a new rotor anyway. I'm gonna just go ahead and get the 180, get the spacer for it, because that's one thing. You have to definitely budget for that. Is when you get a new bike, even when you order it and you're like, okay, I'm taking all these parts from this bike and putting it on this bike and moving this to here, from there to there. Budget yourself an extra. I would go so far as to say budget an extra few $100s. I understand not everybody can do it, and you might be, if biking to you is a hobby, if biking is and cycling is a hobby, then this will make more sense. If it's like, hey, I just ride a bike because I don't have the money for a car, I'm trying to build my life, whatever your circumstances, situations are. But if biking's a hobby to you, and it's just like, oh, I'm getting ready to get a new bike. New bike is going to cost this much, plus these parts I'm getting right off the bat, dropper post, whatever, after tax, I'm going to be out the door at this price. Save a few hundred over what that out the door price is going to be, because when you get that new bike, you're going to start some of your gear that you're riding with that was like, oh, my helmet needs a new helmet pad. you know what, now I can actually get a pack that mounts to these mounts instead of using this one that just strapped around the handlebar, allowing you to do those upgrades. Because like when I got this bike, I was like, oh, I'm just moving everything over. I'm gonna move this to this to this. I used all of my Garmin stuff, which was a major savings. One of the mount for the GoPro, the GoPro style mount that I have on the top, that's the top cap on the top cap of the stem, it replaces the top cap. It would not come off of the old bike. I'm assuming that probably just there's probably some corrosion or something that happened, and I couldn't get it off of the old bike, so it stayed on the old bike. So that was like a $10-15 part that I had to buy another one of. And then I started wanting to switch out the I had a bag that was mounted on the underside of my handlebar, and I was like, well, I have all these mounts on the frame. I found some frame bags, and you can see them on the pictures. One on the top tube and one on the seat tube. And there's mounting points on the frame that worked interfaced with that bag. So I went with those bags, and then I had decided to get new water bottle cages. Replace the water bottle cages. The cages I had taken off the old bike, I put back onto the old bike before I gave it away to a friend of mine. Had the new cages on this bike. I had a bike pump on the old bike. Got a new one for this one because the one that was on that bike was a shock pump and tire pump combo. Didn't have any. I don't need at all a shock pump for this bike, so I went with a smaller, just tire pump only for this bike. And then I got a little bag that attaches. It's not ideal. I kind of wish there was a better method I could come up with, but functionally it works well. I added a little bag that mounts off of the side of the frame, and I can keep a little clamp with a mini ball head on it, and I can toss it. I can put that in the bottom of the bag, and then I can shove a Fuji X-T1 with a either 23 or 27 millimeter, I forget which one there, lens on that camera, and it's perfect. You see a picture you want to take, obviously in the later part of the day at night, you're going to be having to deal with longer exposure, and I'm not trying to get into all the mechanics of that, but the little clamp tripod that I have, I can clamp it to a signpost or a guardrail, or really I could probably lean my bike up, lay my bike down, clamp it to the bike, and that would form enough of a mounting point to work. And it might actually lead to like a cool shot that you wouldn't have otherwise thought of, because it's moving that camera to a different perspective from the image that you're attempting to make. So the one thing I will say though, unless you're carrying a shutter release with you to where you're not like hitting the shutter button and causing vibration to the camera, I would recommend using like a 2 or 3 second self timer, whatever the lowest setting self timer you have, so you can set up your shot, get everything dialed in setting wise, then hit the shutter release button. Don't touch the camera after that. It'll do its little countdown. It'll take the photograph, and then you can undo the little clamp, put all your stuff back in the bag, and go on to your next whatever. So that's all I'm gonna say on that topic. Do need to wash the bike, and that's something that I may try and do this weekend. I have not checked the weather yet, but I will probably try and do that this weekend. Give everything a good washing, re-oil the chain, just general maintenance. Kind of carry on my theme of replacing the batteries in those 2 sensors. Good thing they're 2032s, and at the house we have a huge pack of 2032s. So I'm just hoping that those batteries are still, the sensors turned on when I switched out the batteries, so the batteries at least have power on them. Whether or not they could be, like, I don't know how long they've been around, so they could be quite depleted. But If they are, I mean, it's not a big deal. I'll just get another set because, like I said, they've been sitting there. I think it was one of those, Amazon or eBay purchases years ago. From my understanding, there was like, it was needed, and for the cost of a couple of 2032s, they were able to buy this like pack of like 50 of them for not a whole lot of money. So that's the route you go. But I think I'm gonna go ahead and close out this video, and may do more of these. The funny thing was, before I recorded this, I was thinking, of what I was going to use for a microphone, because I don't have one at my computer setup, and I have like that feeling where, yeah, I could clip like a lav mic, I could use the microphone that's built into the camera on this computer, but I just feel like it's not right, So what I did is I have a little micro recorder, and I have the handle pieces for my Rode. What are those? The little Rode clip-on microphones. It's little handles that Small Rig makes that you can clip those onto and kind of use like a handheld mic. And I have some little tabletop mic stands. I just clip that little recorder onto the top of the handle for the Rode mics. It works perfectly. Because I was looking at some little desktop USB microphones, and I may upgrade to something like that, but for just these little things, if the audio is good enough on these videos, these little talks, then I'll probably just stay using this setup because it's fairly straightforward to utilize. Plus, I can always take this. This is such a compact little setup, and I could probably even like change it up slightly. I could probably not use this handle and just clip the recorder onto the mic clip, and it would probably work. It would probably work well enough. I'm like looking at it and trying to see how it would work or not. There's like two ways I'm seeing I could probably make it work. Really more than that, if just depend on where I clip things together. But yeah, I could probably even like throw this in my bike setup and even like set one of these up and just record it, on a park bench somewhere. Probably wouldn't do that. I could probably just clip this recorder onto my shirt and just record like an audio without the video. But I'm experimenting with my audio setup. Obviously, if this audio is close to unusable, then I will go back to the drawing board, but I will likely just go get my little Samson Meteor mic and just use that, because the audio from that is a good enough quality, and I already have it. I will say this though, I was looking at those microphones and they actually came down in price, because when I bought both of mine, they were like $70 a piece, $60 or $70, and now they're like $35. So, and they're good. They're good little USB microphones, and you can attach them to a mic stand if you needed or wanted to. So that's all I have for today. So until next time. I don't have anything to close out with.